Let us pause for a moment and imagine the greatest fear of a medieval peasant living along the coastlines of northern Europe in the 10th century AD. The cold? Crusaders? Endless wars? Perhaps attacks by wild animals? All of these sound terrifying, of course, and each would indeed be frightening to a person of the 10th century. Yet none of them may have been as terrifying as their greatest fear. Throughout almost the entirety of the Middle Ages, Northern Europe was burned, ravaged, and devastated by various invasions. Still, for peasants living especially along the Atlantic coasts, the most horrifying sight was the sudden appearance of Viking ships on the horizon. Ships that carried with them the most destructive storms of Scandinavia. It is impossible not to understand this fear. By the 9th and 10th centuries, the Viking image, already fierce in appearance, had been magnified by terror stories and transformed into something even more frightening. By the 12th century, chroniclers had turned the black clouds rising over destroyed cities, the bodies of women and children strewn across streets, rape, theft, massacre, and pillage into a grim reality. As if the Viking Age itself was not terrifying enough to the people of that time, some Viking leaders had even darker reputations. Many of them were the very last people one would ever want to meet. To see their faces was considered almost no different from seeing the face of death itself. Now, let us take a closer look at these Viking leaders. Eric Bloodaxe was the favorite son of Harald Fairhair, the first king of Norway. Harald even appointed him as heir before his own death. This granted Eric extraordinary power over his brothers. After Harald's death, Norway was ruled by several brothers who reigned as co-kings in different regions. Eric eliminated them one by one. These bloody murders earned him the infamous title Bloodaxe. But soon the tide turned. After a brief rule, Eric was dethroned by his only surviving brother. Bloodaxe was forced to abandon the lands of his birth, leaving behind a Norway devastated by civil war. Yet this was not the end for him. The rage and violence rooted deeply in his mind would follow him across the sea to England. English chronicles depict Eric as an earl, and his activities there show that he continued to sharpen his axe with blood. His conflicts with legitimate heirs dragged northern England into an unending struggle. As a result, Eric was exiled twice and ultimately betrayed and assassinated by his own men. Among Vikings, not only men but also women could become feared figures. Freydis Eriksdottir, sister of the famous Viking Leif Erikson, joined the expeditions to America and had the honor of helping establish a new settlement in Vinland. Freydis gained fame as a warrior woman who chased down and killed her enemies even while pregnant. She was also disturbed by the presence of other local chieftains in the region. Manipulating her husband, she provoked attacks on some native leaders' settlements. Although some chieftains were killed in these raids, the women and children were left alive. The men refused to kill them. Freydis then decided to handle the matter herself and slaughtered each of them with an axe she found. These actions earned her a terrifying reputation among the Vikings. Some individuals, however, shed a great deal of blood early in their careers. Sweyn Forkbeard was one of them. After years of civil war, he finally killed his own father and seized the Danish throne. But a Viking was expected to prove his strength not only on his own lands, but across the North Sea, in Britain or France. Thus, in 982, Sweyn set sail and reached England. The massacres carried out there quickly gave his Viking army a fearsome reputation. In 1002, by order of the English king, many Danes living in England were slaughtered. Historians would later call this the St. Brice's Day massacre. Upon hearing the news, Sweyn was horrified. This horror soon transformed into fury and violence. The Vikings, under his command, set sail for England and spent the rest of their lives reducing it to ruins. Harald Hardrada fought his first battle at the age of 15. He supported his brother, the King of Norway, but their side lost, forcing Harald to abandon his homeland. Years of travel led him to Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire. With his charisma, quick wit, and fearlessness, he soon rose to command the Varangian Guard, the emperor's elite protectors. After 15 years of exile, Harald returned to Norway in 1046 as a seasoned man and seized the throne through shrewd maneuvers. The title Hardrada, meaning hard ruler, was given to him during the ruthless rule that followed. But Harald's ambitions extended far beyond Norway. He wanted the English throne. The death of Edward the Confessor gave him this opportunity. However, things would not go as Harald wished at Stamford Bridge, which would become his cold grave. Their fame spread throughout Britain and northern Europe. Yet Bjorn Ironside, son of the legendary Ragnar Lothbrok, was among the first Viking leaders to dare sail further south. His reputation extended across nearly the entire Mediterranean world. Bjorn and his Vikings defied convention by turning their ships south, spreading Viking raids from Spain to Italy and even North Africa. Though much of their activity involved quick raids for plunder, some Vikings in this group also engaged in trade. Thus, Bjorn became more renowned than many others. Thanks to him, numerous regions along Europe's southern coasts and Sicily encountered Vikings. Some Viking warriors distinguished themselves through legendary heroism. Gunnar Hamundarson, the protagonist of the Njal saga, was one of them. The saga depicts him as both a warrior and a swift swordsman. so fast that he appeared to swing 3 blades at once. While his enemies believed they had struck him once, he had already delivered 3 fatal blows. For some Vikings, killing was a necessity. For Eric the Red, it became a habit. His first murder resulted in his expulsion from Norway. His next forced him out of all Scandinavia. His next stop was Iceland, but he was not an easy man to understand. His temper could turn the smallest argument into a deadly fight. It was not long before he had committed several murders in Iceland as well. Realizing he could not remain there, he gathered his men and set sail. This journey would transform him from a killer into an explorer who achieved extraordinary feats. Unlike many before him, he did not sail to England or France, but farther west to unknown lands believed to be the land of ice. In 982, this voyage brought him to a new land intertwined with wild nature, Greenland. During his 3-year exile, Eric explored its coasts. The forests stretching along cliffs and slopes inspired him to name it Greenland. After his exile, he returned, told his story everywhere he went, gathered followers, and set sail again. On the way to Greenland, he also accidentally reached the coasts of North America, though it would be his son, Leif Erikson, who would eventually settle there. Thanks to popular culture, Ragnar Lothbrok is widely known today, but this fame is nothing new. The sagas describing his life indicate that he was quite popular even in his own time. Yet earning such popularity was not easy back then. Ragnar's life was filled with endless struggle. Danish sources, Anglo-Saxon chronicles, and Irish records are full of tales of terror surrounding his brutality. Yet piecing together a definitive, historically accurate profile of Ragnar is extremely difficult. Some historians believe Ragnar is actually a composite of multiple historical figures. Therefore, no certain dates or definitive biography can be established. For Vikings, killing often began during adolescence. A 15-year-old Viking had likely already taken part in several raids and plundering expeditions. Through these raids, they learned to navigate vast oceans, travel along 1,000-kilometer rivers, choose the right place to attack, and kill mercilessly under any circumstances. For Egil Skallagrimsson, this career began very early. He wrote his first poem at the age of 4 and committed his first murder at 7. These traits became defining aspects of his character. Throughout his life, he continued both writing and killing. Most of what we know about him comes from Egil's saga, in which he is the main character. Like many Viking stories, Egil's life appears blurred and uncertain. It is difficult to distinguish fact from fiction. Yet his own poems demonstrate that he was at least a real historical figure. Egil was born not in Iceland, but in a settlement in Norway. His father, Skallagrimur, was an ugly man who had been exiled to Iceland for his enmity with the Norwegian king. Egil resembled his father. He suffered from a bone disorder that caused parts of his body to appear deformed. His legs, for example, appeared unusually bowed. Today, this condition is known as Paget's disease. Who would have guessed that a man barely able to walk without assistance would become one of the most feared leaders in world history? Who could have imagined that he would command the great heathen army that invaded England? Ivar the Boneless was born disabled. His body was so fragile that he needed special armor and a shield to fight on the battlefield. According to Viking tradition, he should have been killed shortly after birth, but being the son of a noble saved his life. All our information about Ivar comes either from the English, who cursed him, or from the Vikings, who praised him. English sources describe him as a demon sent from hell. Viking sagas portray him as a living god with supernatural powers. According to the sagas, Ivar's bones were replaced with cartilage. Yet he is still described as tall, handsome, and clever. These contradictions show that much written about him is exaggerated. Some modern historians believe Ivar suffered from osteogenesis imperfecta, brittle bone disease. The events that turned Ivar into one of the most ruthless Viking leaders began when he invaded England to avenge the death of his father Ragnar. His army drenched every place they went in blood, burning churches and monasteries. The most challenging target was Mercia, one of England's strongest kingdoms. The Viking army set up camp near Nottingham. A year later, they destroyed the city walls and killed everyone inside. The rest of England united against Ivar and marched on him. Ivar killed King El of Northumbria so brutally that the English later remembered El almost as a saint-like figure. According to legend, Ivar executed him using the horrific blood eagle method. By 870 AD, Ivar had brought much of Britain under his control. Yet in 873, he suddenly died without any known cause. The most plausible explanation is that the bone disease he suffered from had made life unbearable. One source wrote the following about Ivar's death. The Norwegian king died of a hidden illness. God was greatly pleased with his death. Many of the conditions that allowed Europe to become a wasteland under Viking weapons developed in Scandinavia, the Viking homeland. Historians today believe Viking raids emerged from a tradition within the Scandinavian aristocracy. This tradition sent young men, once they reached a certain level of maturity, abroad to seek glory and success. Over time, these young men gathered others who wished to prove themselves, and they began to move in large groups. These were the groups that ravaged northern Europe between the 9th and 11th centuries. For Christians, Viking massacres reached such unimaginable levels that they believed no sin was left uncommitted against them. They wrote fear-filled lines describing the terror they felt. By day, they lived in fear of a sudden Viking attack appearing behind the walls of their cities. By night, they were tormented by nightmares of Viking invasions. While Vikings may seem like a lost legend buried in the dusty pages of history today, for people of the Middle Ages, they represented a deep and real terror. A medieval mind was almost certainly poisoned by the memory of some Viking atrocity witnessed earlier in life, and that poison would remain in their memory forever.